Massive delays for Bethesda were announced yesterday, and Sony appears to have registered for a brand new PlayStation 5. So yes, as we all know now, yesterday Bethesda delayed Redfall and Starfield into the first half of 2023. So here was the statement that they put out on social media. We've made the decision to delay the launches of Redfall and Starfield to the first half of 2023. The teams at Arcane Austin, Redfall, and Bethesda Game Studios Starfield have incredible ambitions for their games, and we want to ensure that you receive the best, most polished versions of them. We want to thank everyone for their excitement for Redfall and Starfield. That energy is a huge part of what inspires all of us every day and drives our own excitement for what we are creating. We can't wait to share our first deep dive into the gameplay for both Redfall and Starfield soon. Thank you for the support. So, big announcement, big delay. The most anticipated game, which is Starfield, and Redfall was very anticipated too, for 2022 from Xbox and Xbox Game Studios, both delayed into the first half of 2023. People are very upset. This isn't a good thing whatsoever because now Xbox doesn't have that big blockbuster hit to release in 2022. Essentially, there really isn't anything big coming out from Xbox Game Studios for the rest of this year. And on your Xbox Series X and S, you are going to be playing mostly third-party games, Game Pass games, retro games, backwards compatible games, anything else other than Redfall and Starfield. Now, my opinion on this, first of all, is yes, I'm disappointed for sure that these games are delayed. I was very much looking forward to Starfield, especially with the sexy release date that they had for the game. It was probably my most anticipated game of the year and my most anticipated game release since they've shown it off. So very, very disappointed that this game isn't releasing, but definitely it's not the end of the world. It is something that happens. It's been happening within the video game industry since the launch of these consoles, the big games being delayed with all of the stuff that's been going on. This one, probably they just don't want to release something with bugs. They don't want to release something, like they say here, that isn't polished, as they know this is a huge game. This is a generational game. This isn't something that they can put out like what Cyberpunk 2077 did, and then just hope that people don't care that it's a broken, buggy game and then make the changes later. Now, yes, Cyberpunk still made their money off that game, but it didn't have the impact that I bet they expected it to have. And Starfield is one of those generational games that they want to put out. They want it to be top quality, and they want it to have an overall impact on the industry, like what Skyrim did, where people are still playing Skyrim today. People are still talking about just how amazing that game was. I always say delays are good. I don't think they're bad in any way. They're only bad if you're literally only looking to play that game and nothing else. You're just gonna have to wait a bit longer to play a video game. And if the game comes out in a better state than if they would have pushed it out in November, I'm happy to see that they have done this. But we go through the comments and people are very, very upset over this. And I mean, for some people for good reason, but my thing is, it's like if you're sitting at home every single day and you're just waiting for Starfield and it's the only game you want to play, yes, you'll be disappointed. But if you're sitting at home, you go through Game Pass, you go through backwards compatibility, you look at some of the other games coming out in 2022 that maybe you'd want to play, or games that came out in 2021 that you haven't got to yet, there's absolutely no reason you're going to be sitting there saying, I have nothing to play. Because if you are, you may not like video games as much as you think, as there is so much stuff. I am so many games to play. I have such a huge backlog. I go onto Xbox Game Pass. I'm always finding something new. I never have time to finish anything. But that's just me. Some people, this is literally the only game they've been looking forward to. So it says here, W for the games, massive L for Xbox's 2022 year. Hard to argue with that. It is definitely an L for Xbox this year in 2022. No big release, no big game, which calls into question just how more impressive, I would say, how good the console is doing. I mean, they haven't again released anything this year that's been big. Consoles are still flying off the shelf, which to me further pushes home the point that people, for the majority, buy consoles to play the first party exclusives. They buy them to play the third party games. People are buying Xboxes to play Call of Duty, to play Halo, to play whatever is available on Xbox Game Pass, especially with the Xbox Series S. So the relation between locking first party games to a console in order to push them out to customers, because that's the best way to get your customers out, I don't think is there anymore. And we're really seeing that this year with what Xbox has been doing with their ecosystem and with not releasing a first party game. This person says, Bethesda cooking greatness, take your time, champs. And hey, when Starfield comes out, if it is great, as everyone expects it to be. Everyone's going to forget about this delay, and we're going to see that gameplay. I mean, they even mention here, we can't wait to share our first deep dive into the gameplay for both Redfall and Starfield. So you can pretty much bet June 12th is that day that we're going to get those deep dives into both of those games. Scalzi here saying, while delays are good for the game, I still find it interesting how confident Bethesda has openly been about the original Starfield release date. And yeah, that's crazy too, because Todd Howard seemed just extremely dead on confident about November 22nd. Like, it was going to come out, and now we get the delay. Dear Scalzi, the 2022 became an empty year for Xbox now, and with all the studios they have, it sucks. They need to rethink about their strategy. Now, with that point there, I would definitely say that Xbox needs to take everything that they've purchased, all their acquisitions, and develop an almost flawless strategy in the sense that they got to get games starting to roll out now. People are, just from a perception point of view, people are getting annoyed with the delays, with having these large gaps between when a game is announced to when it is released. They have so many studios now. They need to have a set schedule, really, like they've planned and wanted to do, where games are coming out every 3 to 4 months. Because like I've said multiple times in my videos, once that stuff starts rolling out, they're literally going to be unstoppable. You think about the amount of studios they have. If they can get it under control and release games every 3 to 4 months, Xbox is going to be an unstoppable force with Xbox Game Pass, because they're releasing into that service day and date. Oh shit, the Peggies are coming. I said the same thing. And honestly, when I saw this morning, I was like, oh man, people are going to be losing it over this announcement. The Sony fanboys are going to be making fun of the Xbox fanboys. I know people are going to be making fun of me because I'm sitting here saying things like, hey, if you're sitting at home thinking there's nothing to play because games get delayed, you may not like video games as much as you want. But that's honestly how I think. Now, like I said, I'm disappointed about the delay, but there's still so many games to play. Everything is delayed these days. Developers should just stop giving unrealistic release dates to begin with. I mean, November 22nd seemed like a pretty realistic release date to Todd Howard. He seemed very confident on it. So, I mean, I'm very shocked, honestly, that they did delay it. Then you have Arcane here with their tweet saying, here at Arcane Austin, we've decided to delay the launch of Redfall. The team needs more time to bring the game to life. Thank you so much for your continued support. Redfall is our most ambitious game yet, and we can't wait to show it off soon. Go into these comments. People are saying things. Redfall is my most anticipated game. I absolutely adore Prey, and I'm so excited to see what the team has to come up with next. The extra time is frustrating, but understandable. Excited as I am, I'm all about devs taking the right amount of time to get it right. I mean, these are both comments that I think that a lot of people have as well, in terms of their thoughts that, hey, they just want the game to come out good. They don't want it buggy. They want it polished, and they'd rather wait for it than for them to push out something that just doesn't work. So it's a completely different sentiment when you go from the Redfall comments over back to the Bethesda comments. And we look at the games coming out in 2022, and it has been a pretty down year in terms of the big AAA blockbuster games, but there's still so many games to play. I can never wrap my head around people who just think that there's nothing to play. They're sitting at home. They can't even pick up a controller because there are no games. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I just personally believe those are people who either don't like video games as much as they think that they like video games, or literally only play like 1 or 2 games a year and are only looking for those big blockbusters. And you have here in June. So in June alone, there's not too much coming out. You have Sonic Origins if you like Sonic. You have Mario Strikers Battle League for the Nintendo Switch if you're into that type of stuff. But other than that, nothing too crazy there. You go down here into July. Live Alive. That game looks pretty cool if you like JRPGs. Digimon Survive, that one I've always kind of been interested in what that's going to be about. Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Klonoa Fantasy Reverie series. I mean, hey, that game actually is a very, very cool platformer if you've ever tried Klonoa or you like platformers. We go down here into August. In August, I'm pretty excited to check out Saints Row, the new reboot of this game. That looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's probably the one I'm interested in August. September, if you have the Switch, Splatoon 3, Warhammer 40,000 Darktide. We know that's going to be a day one Xbox game for Xbox Game Pass that people are going to be excited to check out. And then you got October, Forspoken. If you're on PS5 or PC, there's a game for you to check out. And then Gotham Knights. I mean, I saw the trailer of Gotham Knights in my previous video. I talked about it. I actually think it looks good. I'm excited to play it and see what it's all about. I know a lot of people thought it looked really bad. I'm just on the other side of that. And then December, I guess Stalker 2 still scheduled for December 8th. So Stalker 2 is still going to be available on Xbox Game Pass on day one. So there are games, new games specifically, to play for the rest of this year, just not the massive, big AAA blockbuster title such as Starfield that people wanted. And there still may be God of War Ragnarok coming out in 2022. We just haven't gotten the release date for that yet. But yeah, overall, my final opinion on this is, yeah, it's a bad announcement. Xbox needs to get their stuff together with just making sure games come out on a timely basis, mainly for the perception of Xbox, of that there are no new games ever coming out on Xbox, because that's a perception that is going to continue to go forward now because of this delay. But for the overall video game industry, there are so many games to play, and this shouldn't be that huge of a deal unless it was the only game you were looking forward to playing. But definitely there is some disappointment with this delay, because November 22nd, 2022 was a great release date for this. I was very confident they were going to hit that date, and now the game is delayed into 2023. Okay, to end things off, let's talk about this trademark that has just popped up, and it appears that Sony has registered for a new PlayStation 5 model in Japan, and it's called the CF1200 series console, and it includes updated radio equipment. So as we know, one of the biggest problems with the PlayStation 5 is just not being able to get the inventory to stores, not being able to create enough of these consoles to meet demand. One of the ways that Sony can cope with this is just to adjust little things within the console. We heard about the chip that they were going to be making, the new semi-customized 6nm CPU from AMD, not giving it more power, not changing any of the specs, but assumingly a chip that is going to be easier to produce from AMD so that PlayStation can push more consoles out. We saw them change from the Austin Evans video, the actual cooling devices, the actual heatsink that was a little bit smaller, a little bit different. And these are all little minor adjustments that PlayStation has to make to transform with the market to make sure that they can still produce enough PlayStation 5s so that they can make money. And here is another one. So apparently in April, the company received construction design certification for what looks to be a new CFI 1200 series model featuring updated radio equipment. The product was granted design certification by Japan's Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications, which ensures that radio and wireless communication equipment conforms to certain technical standards. Now, it seems like with this upgrade, with this new model, when it starts coming out, will essentially just be the same PS5 again, just with a different way to make the radio equipment. I'm assuming because it may be cheaper, it may be harder to get the current radio equipment within the console itself, so that they are able to just create more and try to meet that demand. But I think Sony is definitely going to be moving sooner rather than later in terms of making a fully new redesigned PlayStation 5 if they can get cheaper parts and they can make it smaller in its form factor. I think that's something they will want to do. And maybe all of these little pieces of equipment that are potentially getting smaller to fit within the box will eventually come together with a much smaller outer shell and just a overall nicer and better form factor. Like I've said, the PS5 to me, the form factor, especially the disc version, I really do not like. I think it's very ugly and it's way too big, and it has that external stand that is just awkward and moves around on it. And anytime you want to move your PS5, you got to take the stand and switch the positioning of it and all that type of stuff. So I'm definitely all for a redesigned PlayStation 5, especially a slimmer model if that does come out in the next couple of years. That's it for me, guys. Let me know your thoughts on this. Obviously, the major thing here is the Bethesda delays with Starfield and Redfall. Let me know what you think about this. Are you extremely sad about this? Are you over Xbox now because of this delay? Or are you sitting there and you're thinking, hey, there's still so many games to play that I'm happy to wait for just a more polished versions of these games? And what do you think about Sony registering a new PS5 model in Japan? If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here, you liked what you saw, consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support, and I'll catch you in the next video.
Bye.